casual announcer in English and Assamese in All India Radio for about 13 years. She is a trained Indian classical dancer. She's doing very multitasking work. Not only that much, she is very passionate about cooking and baking, as well as she conducts classes for those who are interested in this. She is a member of Mithali Sangha, a woman empowerment organization. So I welcome Arunima Baruha. Kindly enlighten with your lecture on reincarnation and rebirth. Thank you. I welcome you once again.
Thank you, sister. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, brothers and sisters. I am thankful to all of you for giving me this opportunity to speak in this August forum. I am especially thankful to Brother Pradeep Mahapatraji and Assam Theosophical Federation for considering me eligible to speak before such knowledgeable participants. This is my first ever talk on an e-platform. Please pardon me if I commit any mistake. Hope you would bear with me for the next 30 minutes or so. I am given the responsibility to talk on the chapter 7 and 8 of the book, The Key to Theosophy by H.P. Blavatsky. This book was published in 1889 by H.P. Blavatsky, expounding the principles of theosophy in a question and answer manner. The chapters 7 and 8 mainly deal with reincarnation or rebirth and things related to it, such as karma, law of compensation, and law of retribution, etc. Here, many doubts regarding the doctrine of reincarnation are put forward in the form of questions. HPB tried to resolve all those doubts by answering the questions. We all are familiar, more or less, with the different aspects of the soul's journey through life and death. Human being alone can understand the purpose and aim of life. For some, it is a great blessing, and for some, it is not worth living, as it is full of misery, sorrow, and suffering, and ends in death. When we understand the true meaning of life, it is blessedness itself. True life is the eternal and self-existent power which animates all things and is the source of all activities and all living forms. Since life is eternal, it is beyond death and birth. Death cannot be the end of life. Death brings destruction to our physical bodies on physical planes only. When the soul is separated from the physical body, we do not die. We continue to live, though in another dimension. In reality, there is no death. What we call death in physical plane is greeted as birth in other plane. Death is a door to a fuller, richer, nobler, more beautiful, and radiant life. That means change from one state of consciousness to another state of consciousness. Rishi Aurobindo wrote a beautiful poem called Life and Death, using binary opposites, life and death. I am quoting here the last two lines of that poem. Life only is, or that is, life disguised. Life a short debt until by life we are surprised. Now, in this talk, we are restricted only to the reincarnation aspect of the cycle. I am going to give a summary of the chapter on the basis of theosophical teaching. First of all, we will have to discuss what reincarnation is. Reincarnation is rebirth, the descent of human soul into successive physical bodies. It implies the existence of something relatively permanent that enters into something relatively impermanent. From time immemorial, thinkers all over the world have been trying to unravel the mystery of reincarnation. Different traditions hold different views on the idea of reincarnation. It is taught in the great epics of the Hindus as well as in the scriptures of the Egyptians. The Buddha taught it and constantly spoke of his past births. The Sufi Mohammedans also hold that belief. Jalaluddin Rumi, the Persian poet and mystic, very beautifully depicted the entire process of evolution of life on earth in a poetic form. He wrote, I died from mineral and became plant. I died from plant and reappeared in an animal. I died from animal and became a man. Wherefore then should I fear? When did I grow less by dying? Next time I shall die from the man that I may grow the wings of the angel. Now, what is it that reincarnates? HPB says it is the spiritual thinking ego, or we can say the ego, the third principle manas, with the two higher principles, buddhi and atman, assumes different bodies. By successive births or involution, ego gains experience, which it carries home for assimilation into innate capacities and powers, mental and moral. Now, what is ego? There is a divine spark in every human being. In theosophy, we call this the divine spirit, monad, which is universal and not self-conscious at all. In the process of evolution, the universal principle monad projects innumerable rays called souls. At the level of soul, it forms what in theosophy is called higher ego, source of I-ness, which is though self-conscious, very, very spiritual, not selfish at all. It sends rays to the lower planes and forms the personality, that is mind, body, and emotion. The divine spark goes down to the denser planes to develop self-consciousness, but still retaining the sense of oneness. In the higher plane, sense of I-ness is very spiritual, not selfish. Separation begins in the lower plane, and there, sense of I-ness is very sharp and totally selfish. The divine spark, by repeated incarnation, can develop the potentiality one has at the beginning of involution. By successive births, the soul learns and evolves. In each birth, it unfolds its divinity little by little and finally becomes one with the divinity. This is all about the reincarnating ego. Materialists who do not believe in the theory of pre-existence of soul raise some questions pertaining to this theory. They are, number one, loss of memory of previous birth. Number two, spatial creation by God for each soul. Number three, law of heredity. Some objections have been made by many who do not believe in the doctrine of reincarnation. They say, if we existed before, why do we not remember what we did ourselves? But we forget more of the present life than we remember, don't we? We do not remember what we ate day before yesterday, what we did when we were children. If this be so, how could we expect our present brain to remember experiences in which that brain and body had no share at all? The ego in every birth is furnished with a new body, new brain, and new memory. They receive from the reincarnating ego not the detailed experiences of the past, but the qualities, tendencies, and capacities made out of those experiences. Though with their personalities, the memory of our past lives are destroyed, yet there are some exceptions where memory of the past lives is occasionally found in children, especially if they die a violent death in the last life. There are cases, again like two lovers who fall in love at the first sight. Here, love means attraction of two souls, not the passion of the lower body. The pure love is a divine force, and it will continue to hold them together through eternity. Our present life is the result of our past, and our future will be the result of our present. Whether we remember or not doesn't make any difference. There are souls who can remember. We all know soul, not the body, incarnates. Unless we have an access to the soul, our brain has no idea what was our previous life. If we rise to the height of our spiritual consciousness, we can see our past and future just as if it were eternally present. Therefore, Sri Krishna said to Arjuna, "O Arjuna, both you and I have passed through many births. You know them not, but I remember them all." Raja Yogi, through powerful concentration upon the dormant impression of the subconscious mind, can remember all the events of his past life. Buddha remembered 500 of his previous births. SPB says reminiscence, which is the memory of the soul, gives assurance to almost every human being of his having lived before and having to live again. Now, coming to the second point, that is spatial creation by God for each soul. This theory of spatial creation of the individual soul at the time of birth denies pre-existence of the human soul, but admits the continuity of soul after death in an eternal future. But it is impossible for a thing which has a beginning in time to last forever. According to this hypothesis, man's character, on which his whole destiny depends, is specially created for him by and imposed on him without any choice of his own. Everything depends on the whim or arbitrary will of God. In this case, the justice of all just God, love of all loving Father could be questioned. Again, according to this theory, a noble soul after death enjoys eternal bliss in heaven, and then the evil one is punished in eternal hell. There will be no scope for redemption. Here question arises, why a man shall be held responsible throughout eternity for the works which he was forced or predestined to perform by the will of the Lord of the universe. This theory makes God partial and unjust. If we believe in the immortality of the human soul, we shall have to admit its pre-existence also. In Vedanta, true immortality means eternal existence in the past as well as in the future. Therefore, the one birth theory is not logical. There is another theory in connection with the reincarnation of soul. It is the theory of transmigration or metempsychosis. This theory means the passing of the soul from one body after death to another, which is ready to receive it, to gain experience and knowledge in those lives or through forms, or to reap the results of the works or deeds of the previous lives. It may enter into a human or an animal form. One who performs good deeds will enter into human forms or the angelic forms, and the performer of the wicked deeds enter the animal forms. Remaining there for some time will perhaps take the human and the angelic form and then return again to this earth in form of the higher animals. Thus, what happens? Transmigration means the revolution of the soul from body to body and excludes the idea of growth, progress, and evolution from lower to higher state of consciousness. The rational minds do not believe in the retrogression of the human souls into animal forms. They believe in the doctrine of reincarnation. Now let's see, what does theory of heredity say about reincarnation? The commonly accepted meaning of the theory of heredity is that all the well-marked peculiarities, both physical and mental, in parents are handed on to the children. As per this theory, hereditary diseases, little tricks of manner and habits are transmitted to the children by their parents. Transmission of mental and moral likeness is only true within limits. Acquired qualities are not transmissible. Heredity can explain only similarities, not differences. The doctrine of reincarnation alone can explain satisfactorily and rationally the diversities among children and reason of many instances of uncommon powers and genius displayed in children. For example, Mozart, the great musician, wrote a sonata when he was 4 years old. And we all know Sankaracharya, the great commentator of Vedanta philosophy, finished his commentary when he was only 12 years old. Such cases cannot be explained by the theory of hereditary transmission. There is another theory in connection to this hereditary theory I want to mention. It is called cumulative heredity. Cumulative means here gradualness. It says genius is the result of cumulative heredity. That is, it presents itself by degrees from less genius to greater and still greater and so on. However, if we look back to the genealogy of people like Shakespeare, Plato, Raphael, Homer, etc., there never was in their families people almost like them. So no other theory than that of reincarnation can explain the causes which produce geniuses and prodigies in this world. Now, coming to the second part, we all know the two great pillars of theosophical teaching are reincarnation and karma. The theory of reincarnation includes karma or law of cause and effect and post-mortem process. Any action, physical or mental, is called karma. As every effect must have a cause, every consequence must have an antecedent. So also, there must be equal balance between a cause and its effect. Bound by this law of karma, each individual soul is performing various works. Each one is playing its part and reaping its results, which may be good or evil, happiness or suffering. The forces of nature operate neither for profit nor for loss, but for a perfect balance or harmony. Polarity, we all know polarity exists in every department of nature. For example, a long peace is followed by a long war and vice versa, and bring in the end a perfect balance. This is what we understand by the word compensation. The law of compensation and the law of retribution work together. HPB said, every laborer is worthy of his hire. Whatever we suffer physically or mentally may appear to be unjust, but when we face its cause and compare with it, we find that it is perfectly right and a just compensation. If the cause be evil, the effects will bring evil return. No one can defy this law of compensation. If we deny the reincarnation of soul, there will be no compensation for the wicked nor for the victorious or virtuous. The compensation for the apparent physical suffering and misery of a good and virtuous man or woman during his or her earthly career is to be found in the soul life. The ego, after getting rid of the physical life, enjoys a long bliss of mental rest in Debachan or heaven. As a compensation, the ego here enjoys indescribable bliss. Nothing material or physical can enter this place. SPV says, crimes and sins committed on a place of objectivity and a world of matter cannot receive punishment in a world of pure subjectivity. That is, the spiritual self in Debachan, that is the world of subjectivity, receives no punishment for the sins it commits in the world of objectivity, that is in the physical world, the world of matter. Now, a brief glimpse into the plane of Debachan. Debachan is a specially guarded part of the mental world from which sorrow and evil are kept away. Unfulfilled dreams of the person in the physical world are fulfilled there, the spiritual aspirations. Here, unfulfilled dreams means not the material desires like wealth, houses, cars, etc. All the spiritual aspirations of the person, of the soul. It is a place of rest, of reward, of assimilation. After the matters of the astral world are purged, the consciousness moves forward to the spiritual plane, leaving behind the emotional left out in the astral plane as shell. There is a new birth of the consciousness in this new plane. Here he awakens with a strong sense of bliss. His stay on the Debachanic plane depends on his karma on the physical plane. That is, his karma means how spiritual he was in his earthly life. In Debachan, the experiences are assimilated and development of faculties, virtues, skills take place. When the whole process of assimilation finishes, the soul is ready for incarnation, this time with more power and skill. So the now soul becomes empowered. The skandhas, seeds, the personal tendencies, waiting for the souls at the threshold of Devachan. Souls that become stronger in Devachan take on all the seeds that cannot be dissolved and works on them in the physical plane with the aid of the mental faculties, which it assimilates during its stay in Devachan. In this way, the soul matures and lower tendencies are worked upon in every incarnation, little by little. The soul is fully evolved and realizes the truth. Now what happens? Thus, every Siddharth shall become Buddha. The doctrine of karma alone can explain the mysterious problem of good and evil and reconcile man to the terrible and apparent injustice of life. The knowledge of universal truth prevents them from cursing life or human beings or from blaming their supposed creator when they see fools and profligates are honored in society, when they find people who possess neither intellect nor any of the noble virtues enjoys all the comforts of life. The karma creates nothing, nor does it plan or design anything. We create by our own actions the causes of good and evil and receive reward or punishment as the reaction of our thoughts and deeds. Thoughts are more powerful than actions, we all know that. The sinful thought about other people are more severely punished because it is more potent in creating evil results than deeds. The doctrine of karma denies the arbitrary ruler and teaches that God never rewards the virtuous nor punishes the wicked, as every good act brings its own reward by the law of compensation. So every crime or wrong act brings its own punishment by the law of retribution, whether it is found in this life or in the next. I want to conclude my talk by putting a line from Bhagavatam. Good and evil of this world of duality are unreal, are spoken of by words, and exist only in the mind. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Arunima ji. Hello, brothers and sisters. Are there any questions on the subject? She has dealt very nicely, very beautifully, very
Please
comprehensively.
unmute yourself, sister.
Hello, can you hear me? And in a very detailed way, and anybody who doesn't know anything about the subject also can easily understand. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sister.
Are there any questions or anybody wants to add to the same subject pertaining to the subject?
Sister, I want to say from Assam Federation to give her thanks, Sister Arunima, that she delivered very nicely her talk. And I grateful to Brother Mahapatraji and also to our sister Arunima. Thank you, Sister Arunima.
Thank you, sister.
Hello.
Anybody has got any doubt? Any clarification required?
Hello.
Yes.
I want to speak from Bengal Theosophical Federation.
Yes, yes.
She has given such a lecture that we have been really impressed. But in the present the world, we want to know, are there any scientific proofs about this reincarnation and rebirth theory?
I don't know much about the scientific proof, but in the world, in other parts of the world, it has been, they are trying to prove it. And our clairvoyants, our adepts, clairvoyants, by their special power, they are proving it. They are going, and rishis also, our rishis also, they can go to the higher levels and see, and they can say that what reincarnation is the only solution.
Good morning, but Madam, are you speaking about the neotic sciences that we sometimes see in the magazines or papers?
No, I don't know about it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Only theosophical perspective I am just sharing, whatever I know little.
Okay, thank you.
Research people are really researching on the same subject.
Yeah.
In Bangalore, Nimhans, there is one hospital. There people are researching. There one Patrija is there. She has done so many case studies and she has written so many articles also. It has been published in Bangalore, Karnataka.
Yeah. Thank you, sister. Thank you.
Any senior member wants to add anything on the subject?
Well, Sister Sandhya Rani, I would like to thank Aruna ji, very nicely explained, and all theories she put before us. and she has studied very well theosophy and explained very nicely. I am
Thank you,
very
sir.
much impressed by her way of explanation. And the basic question is, what is it that incarnates?
Yeah,
That
yeah.
research to be done.
Yeah.
That is what Krishnamurti asked, and Madam also quoted that one. What is it
Yeah.
that incarnates? Krishnamurti asked to all of us.
Yeah.
So when we think of this, our Arunima Madam said that our vibrations and they attract the same vibrating material
Yes.
in the womb, etc.
Yeah, yeah.
And if we believe scientifically in vibrations, if we believe scientifically in resonance theory,
Yeah.
then this is really acceptable to the intellectual mind. We can intellectualize because our thoughts about our faith, gratitude, good motives, peace, purity, then power of compassion, humility, all these are higher vibrations.
Yes.
And these higher vibrations are really at high level, and they attract the same kind of vibrations.
Yeah.
And as Arunima said, that genius,
Yeah.
that accumulation theory of heredity,
Yes.
it is not that she has not told any scientifically. She has explained scientifically. That is, so many theories are there. She has explained. And this accumulation theory, nothing goes wrong. Anything you do on spiritual level, that is recognized, that remains with you. But what happens in this pandemic period? We are so frightened. We are complaining each other. We have insecurity. We are much angry before. And also, the ego problems are there. These are all lower vibrations are polluting the whole atmosphere. So in this period, when such kind of lecture is heard, and there we find the importance of study of karma and reincarnation. Karma, if we are giving good vibrations, that we are doing good karma. If we are not giving good vibrations, it is a bad karma. So karma is law of harmony, as Madam said, and incarnation is a law of necessity. In one life, the soul cannot be pure. It is already pure in the sense it is polluted by such kind of vibrations. So to make it pure consciousness, one life is not enough. That is a scientific or logical thing. So if we believe in this, perhaps we believe also that this law of reincarnation is a law of necessity in the course of evolution.
Yeah.
So if we think like this, both these law of karma and law of incarnation are necessary to study, and that is what Arunima emphasized, explained nicely. I am very much happy to attend this lecture. Thank you, Arunima, and also thanks Sandhya to giving me this opportunity to speak few words on this.
Thank you, sir, for enlightening me, sir. Thank you, sir. very
Thank you,
much.
Shindeji.
Thank you, sister. Thank you.
Any senior member? Any other senior member wants to share?
The questioner asked one thing, whether there is any scientific proof.
Yeah.
My answer to his question, I don't know who is the brother, but this is an occult science.
Yes.
Science, you can require a laboratory instrument where you can prove certain
Very,
facts.
yeah, very true.
But
Very
in
true.
occult science, you have to unfold yourself. You have to believe certain facts, and by your meditation, you have to accept something, because the great teachers, the great sages are there. They have given us for our pondering, our analysis, and also doing something by which we can proceed in our spiritual journey. So occult science, no need of a laboratory or instrument to prove anything. And that apart, the reincarnation, rebirth theory is different altogether. It is all of a sudden, one person becoming very knowledgeable. Let's say about a small child, he or she can give lectures on Bhagavad Gita and other many texts from where he or she got all this knowledge. So that is one part. And also there are many people who are born with blind, savage. All these are coming very mystical theory. So rebirth and reincarnation is a theory you have to
Accept.
believe. And then unless you believe certain fact, no further progress can be possible. And if you want to see scientific proof of it, it is not possible at all. Because science till date has not progressed much, because they are up to the level of ether or some ether 1 or ether 2, something like that. So they have not yet established this astral or emotion part, except some psychologists believe on it. So my brother, to get something scientific proof, it is not laboratory, or by in a laboratory method we can prove it. So it is occult science. We have to believe it on the basis of the text available with us. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mahapatra.
Good morning. Actually, hello. Actually, Anil Kumar Barua. I just want to speak few words,
Yeah.
because ultimately in spiritual field, we'll have to know Paramatma. If we know what is Paramatma, so to know Paramatma is the first thing. That is the main handicap for spiritual life. And we believe that our soul is a part of the Supreme Soul, and that it takes rebirth and then reincarnate, and again after it's a cycle of birth for purification, and we get purified, and ultimately every human being is going to the Supreme Soul, merging in the Supreme Soul. So if that belief is there, it's a conviction, not belief, because if we meditate and all, as Mahapatra is told, so it is our conviction that it is we come from the Paramatma, we are a Supreme Soul, and we get purified and then merge into the Paramatma. So question of believing that reincarnation, here actually I don't find any place for that. One who goes in that particular direction, he has the conviction that there is a Paramatma and we merge with Paramatma, and therefore that reincarnation is an essential process, and we get purified and soul to soul. As we said, as Mahapatra said, that some soul, some personalities, they attain, in the start itself, they attain so many good qualities, so many high intellectual, high spiritual. One example was Sant Gyaneshwar of Maharashtra. It was only, there are so many saints, only few, they are about 12 years, 13 years old. Where they get the wisdom, actually they give it to the mankind. So definitely we believe in that. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Thank you.
I hope all your doubts have been clarified. Sister Arunima ji
Yes.
has very nicely, clearly, she has explained one beautiful word she has used. Life is eternal.
Yeah.
So we have come, descended, and we have to ascend. So to reach that eternity only, we have to take rebirths. This is the main meaning, which she has explained very nicely. True life is a blessedness. That is what she has said. Yes, all of us are blessed human beings. And she explained what is called death. And in one plane, it is known as death. In the other plane, it is known as birth.
But
What more is required? Why we have to suffer? Why that sorrow? Nothing is required. Very nicely, I mean, in a very simple language, she has explained it to us. Then she has also explained what is that incarnates. That is the human soul or the ego that is reincarnating. And why we do not believe in this reincarnation. She has explained very nicely, because of lack of remembrance.
remember.
This is the main thing. We don't have that memory or recollectedness or remembrance. Luckily, during this last year, COVID-19, I had the book Key to Theosophy, first edition. So I went through that, H.P. Blavatsky's. Now it is revised and it's a compact thing.
Yes.
So when I read the original one, very nicely HPB has written. And another word, what she has explained is the necessity of reincarnating. Why it is means to compensate. Compensation is very much required. We know how to take, how to grab, how to have the desire, but we don't know how to compensate, how to give back. And in Devachan, before reincarnating again, we all stay in Devachanic plane, all those things. She has not left anything, everything in a simple language she has explained. Thanks a lot once again for
Thank you.
giving such a wonderful, simple explanation on reincarnation and or rebirth. Thank you,
sister.
Arunima ji, once again.
Thank you, sister, for explaining clearly.
Thank you. Shall we conclude?
Yes.
Okay. Asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrutyorma amrutangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Sarve Vaisukinas Santu Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Great speech by Sister Arunima.
Thank you, sir.
Thankful to Assam Federation for recommending her name, particularly Sister Nilma and other members of the Assam Federation. And I am very grateful that Brother Bipulji also attended in spite of his some not good health. And as we know, this online platform actually giving up many new stalwarts in Theosophical Society, particularly Vibhaji, then another Mansi, now Sister Arunima. She is a good speaker from Assam. With these words, I again pay my gratitude, all the participants, thanks from my core of heart. With these words, I conclude the session. and we will meet again next time. On Friday, we have a Mahatma letter class by Brother Shikhar Agnihotri, and next Sunday, we have a special lecture program by Brother Shiv Kumar Pandey. With these words, with these announcements, I conclude closing session.